Hi everybody, I'm Tarkov Reporter, and today we're helping little Timmies get through the early stages of their Tarkov life. I've got a few Sherpas lined up to help teach us various aspects of the game, and today we're focusing on two maps, Customs and Woods, to give you a deep dive on those two important early game locations. So we brought in a Tarkov Sherpa named Dunk the Cat to help us do just that. Give her a follow on Twitch, that link is in the description below. Alright, here's Dunk the Cat going in depth on Customs and Woods. Enjoy. All right, I'm here with Dunk the Cat, who is an Escape From Tarkov Sherpa. Dunk, welcome. How are you? And how are you enjoying the early wipe so far?
Hello, I'm great. I'm really enjoying Wipe. It's been a blast and join the grind.
Absolutely, absolutely. Are you one of the people who's going to be grinding to 71?
I will be, yes.
Okay. Good luck. Good luck.
I'm gonna try. We'll see what happens.
You're a much braver soul than I am. But you're here today to help us get to know two maps better, Customs and Woods. And I want to start with Customs because I'm betting a lot of noobs are going to be spending a lot of time learning that map, and especially with all the quests that are there to start. So
Definitely.
let's start there. What when you spawn into Customs, before you go into Customs, before you even load into Customs, what are the first things you're thinking about before you go into this map?
The first things I'm doing is setting up a goal for the map, especially if it's early for my character. So if I'm like level 1,
Mhm.
I'm thinking about what do I need out of this raid? And the main thing is survival, but quests are always a bonus.
Right.
And so I'm thinking in my routing in my head, I'm thinking about those quests and I'm thinking about items that I also need in the future. So keys, like the unknown key, um, and thinking about how do I put that into my route safely. And of course, I'm thinking meds and all of that and putting down there a nice little kit. But I'm also thinking ahead to the planning out my route.
All
And
right.
so
Now, when you spawn in, do you have specific routes that you like to take from specific spawn points?
I do, yes.
Okay.
I think you could get away with certain routes if you take your time. Like you wouldn't have to have a specific route.
Hmm.
I think the biggest mistake people make is just rushing the raid,
Sure.
and that they run into those PvP fights within the first few minutes, and they die maybe, or only half the squad makes it out or something.
Hmm.
So if you're focusing survival, it's definitely nice to take your time and to set yourself up for the raid. So bringing in maybe even snacks too if you plan to be in there a long time, and just being cautious.
Okay.
But if I'm spawning like trailer park side of
Hmm.
customs, this one can get messy because a lot of people go to Big Red for their quests
Yep.
right away. And so if you're spawning there and you're trying to quest in Big Red, especially take your time, because I imagine if you take your time, the other people that spawned either in storage or on the other side of the road there, they're gonna be headed to Big Red as well.
True.
And if they're not, if they move forward, if they head on to like dorms or etc., then you have Big Red, which is nice.
Yeah. Even people who spawn, by the train might be pushing back towards you.
Exactly. That's extremely important on that side of the map to take your time moving out of spawn because so many people push back,
Hmm.
either for like Big Red and they're questing or they're looking for those that have spawned in. And I don't know why, but on customs, I feel like people look towards the spawns even more often
Right.
than woods.
Yeah. I think they've fixed some of the. It feels like some of the spawns are better now than they have been in the past. Like it did feel
Yes.
like maybe a wipe or two ago, you'd spawn in trailer park and you'd instantly have a fight from the people at the train coming down the
Yes.
road. But now maybe
It's
they put them
been so
across the
much
border.
better.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah. It's been a lot better. I still catch it occasionally,
Hmm.
but it's more people coming from, like, if you're trailer park, they're coming from road to custom side.
True, 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 true. All right, now what about if you spawn on the other side of the map? The
Mhm.
map has it's a very narrow map, and the spawn points, as we mentioned, were very tight together before. Maybe a little more spaced out now. but if you spawn on, let's say, like the checkpoint side,
Yeah.
what kind of a path are you taking, and how does it change your gameplay?
Um, there it's very for me early on it's quest dependent.
Mhm,
I'm comfortable with either holding the wall, staying to like the far right going towards dorms,
mhm.
or moving up more towards the middle towards checkpoint and hugging there's another wall there that leads then to eventually gas station, new gas. And so I feel like that area is doable and can be safe if you're using natural cover efficiently.
Okay. Now, we've used a bunch of callouts that new players probably have no clue about. You know,
Right.
I'm wondering, how do you go about teaching new people these various callouts, and because it can be a bit complicated when you're playing in groups.
Correct. Yeah. So when I take in a Sherpaling, I usually try to send them the maps ahead of time
Mhm.
as soon as I've accepted their ticket to tell them, like, here, give it a look, get familiar with it. But the map doesn't have all the call outs,
No,
unfortunately. So, like, when I say the rocks above gas, sometimes if you're in that rare, you can just, in that area, you could just say, I'm on the rocks. And most veteran players know what that means.
sure, yeah,
But I try to start saying things when I'm teaching my Sherpalings. I'm like, I'm at this, which is by this, which,
okay,
and the second part I'm saying is I'm by the rocks on gas station, or I'm trying to put it to something that's on the map. And so it's just it takes a lot of repetition. Unfortunately, it's not something super simple. I think I taught one Sherpaling for a week straight, and by the fourth day, they started doing call outs, and it was
nice.
beautiful. So it
That's
just takes a little time.
that's got to be a great feeling for you as a teacher, yeah, to
Yes.
see that come full circle there. That's
Yes.
great.
Mhm.
Now, how about some of the hotspots on this map? You've got uh, let's focus on the hotspots where you can find the scav boss, specifically Reshala and his
Right.
guards. Dorms, gas station, and I know that I call it stronghold, but other people call it various names such as Alamo and
Mhm.
Fortress.
Yeah.
What? How do you teach new players to approach those hotspots on the map?
I typically tell them to listen a lot
Mhm.
for the sounds that they're gonna get. Like, if you're hearing a whole bunch of AK fire in dorms, potentially the boss could be there or it's popping over there. So I tell them to kind of avoid that until they're way more comfortable in the game because I usually teach people from the very, like, beginning, like, level 1 through 7.
Right.
And so when I'm teaching them that, I'm saying, listen and kind of avoid that. Move your route a little differently
Okay.
away from it. So the same for if they're at Gas or Alamo. But when I'm teaching someone who's boss hunting, it's a little bit different because they need that. They need to go kill him for the quest. And so there I always encourage range a little bit
Okay.
because having like a Valde or a hammer scope of some sort
Mm,
so that maybe they can they can approach it from the outside and take a little bit slower approach and pick something off from afar.
true. Now, you're when you say Valde and her hammer, you're making me feel like I'm really missing Last Wipe now because I don't have access to that stuff just yet, not
I
having level
know.
20.
Yeah.
Um, with the
Um,
flea market change, how does that? Yeah, I think that'll affect teaching new players and new players in general taking on these challenge
I
that is Tarkov.
I think with the flea market now being level 20, it's going to encourage the use of things that maybe people didn't use before. Like I think it's Jaeger. Once they unlock Jaeger, they have the VPO,
Mhm.
which has a decent sight. Um, and if you like sniping, and it has a suppressor as well that's decently cheap. So I think it's going to encourage people to use maybe something else or throw something I can't remember the site, but there's a few cheaper sites that you can throw on like a SKS as well. And so I think it's going to really push people to maybe switch things up.
For sure. I'm missing my Valde so much.
Yes. Yes.
Oh god. Um,
And barters, I think it's gonna actually get people to use barters more often because there's like the Valde, there's a barter before you can buy it.
Totally, totally, totally.
Mm.
Now let's quickly jump back to Reshala and the guards.
Yeah.
How do you when you're taking a new player in, how do you teach them to fight? Reshala is not the most difficult of boss guards in this game, but for a new player, it's a challenging task for sure. You know, there's yeah, his guards are tanks at times. So
Mhm.
how do you take these fellas on?
I kind of treat them as like teaching somebody if they're gonna fight raiders.
Mhm.
So I try not to have them repeak.
Yeah.
So that's the one of the big thing. Position Try to reposition as much as you can. If another player gets involved, you need to back off and reassess because then it gets really messy once you're either pinched or you're dealing with players and the boss. And they act a little bit different. In Stronghold and Gas Station, they're pretty similar how they act.
Mhm.
But in dorms, they're very tricky on the stairs and in the doorways and
Mhm.
it's the corners. So I always tell them to be extremely careful in dorms because with the peeking because they can zap you way faster and in dorms, I feel like.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
nades are so important
Yep.
in the fight with Reshala and the guards. I always encourage throwing grenades to either get them to move. If you can't get a better angle on them, that'll force them to move. So those are some of the main points that I bring up.
Great points. Now, when they're looting this map, what should new players keep their eyes out for? What kinds of loot are they looking for? And once they get that loot, who can they sell it to now that flea market's quite a ways away for a brand new player to the game?
Right. So stash space is always an issue. So selling to
Yes.
traders is really nice. So I'll start with what kind of loot and on customs where to loot. On customs, it's especially if you're a newer player, it's good to take your time. So I think just loot whatever is around you, kind of just explore as you go. But I usually encourage them to have a map up either on their phone or their other monitor that shows the stashes. I think stashes are really great way of getting um, a diverse set of loot. And so I encourage them to try and like get to know those
Mhm.
and bring them into their their
Yeah,
pathing.
for sure.
But as for loot on customs, the bigger ticket items that I encourage them to start going towards, like if they spawn by Crack House, which is RUAF side,
Yep.
I definitely encourage them if they spawn there first to go in and look for intelligence folders and check the dead body and things like this, because it'll get them in the habit of getting those higher tier loot, even though it can be a more risky place to go because people will push there. It's good for them to start getting into that thought process. And the the thing with the traders now is it's kind of interesting because weapons, we used to sell most of the weapons we'd get off of our scav runs or off of scavs in general to mechanic right away. But now they've added durability on guns to where scavs have about 50% durability on their guns. So
Yeah.
if you're scavving a lot or if you're pulling guns off scavs a lot, unfortunately the profit isn't as great. So you have to sell those to fence now. But you'll get lucky sometimes and find a full 100 out of 100 in a crate. Um, but weapons and weapon parts they mainly go to mechanic, and then except for bolties and shotguns, you wanna sell those probably to Jaeger or skier, depending. And then the therapist will take your meds, your dog tags, your barter items, and you kind of start to get a handle on like what sells the best just with time. Like, I just know over time that condensed milk is 14K to
Yeah.
therapist,
Yeah.
and it's hard to teach that, so I just tell them to pick up everything and just slowly piece together what it sells for, and then as they start to get an idea, they need to think about each square should be at least 10K in their backpack before they extract. So is the condensed milk worth it, or should I pick up these crackers? Well, crackers aren't really worth that, so the condensed milk over the crackers. But and then Ragman takes your clothing, so I always encourage them to either not bring a melee or to bring a very cheap melee so they can maybe switch that out for the antique axe if they find it, or a better melee option because then they can either keep that for a quest or they can sell it, which is just kind of efficiency. But Ragman takes clothing, which is nice, so you can just throw on as much clothing off of Scavs onto you to sell to him in some of those free slots. And then Peacekeeper is really interesting because he he takes the diaries and the flash drives and some of the stuff that the other traders won't take, but it's interesting because he gives you US dollars. So, and this tendency is that it's like he doesn't give you as much as the other traders, but you have to level him up by spending money there. So,
Mhm.
some of these
Yep.
traders, you're gonna be selling them things that maybe you'd get more at therapist for, but you're gonna sell it to mechanic or therapist or something, or to peacekeeper or something like this, so that you can level them up.
Yeah. I know a lot of people cheese that one because
Oh,
leveling Peacekeeper
definitely.
can be a little tricky.
Yeah, and then Purport, there's not really anything special to sell to him besides grenades, but I always encourage people to keep their grenades and use them to level up strength and, throwables, the skill.
Cool. I wanted to ask you, is there any, just as an aside, are there any items that you're having a harder time finding this wipe, or items that you were finding left, right, and center that you wouldn't have expected this wipe?
Yeah, so CPU fans seem to be pretty difficult to find, and
Hmm.
based on the price on the flea market, they're pretty high for right now because you do need them eventually for Bitcoin farm, but a lot of people aren't at that point yet, so the price shouldn't be super high. But they're sitting at about 25K, so CPU fans definitely. So hit those
Yeah.
computers. And then I think other people have had trouble with relays and toothpaste. And so I always encourage going woods or checking a lot of those big ration boxes, wooden boxes on both customs and woods because they have a chance to get your toothpaste and your relay, which are for some of those hideout um, upgrades early
Definitely.
on.
Definitely. Now, when you're tracking the items that you need personally for your PMC, either for quests or for hideout upgrades, is there some specific way that you track that, or do you just have it all in your memory still that I need, X amount of hoses?
Yeah, so Tarkov Wiki is my best friend.
Yeah.
I'm constantly when I'm trying to determine if I need to sell something or keep it, I'm looking it up on the wiki, and sometimes I'll be more organized and I'll have sticky notes all over my
Oh my
monitors
God,
with what
mine
to
too.
keep. Yes, I especially when I was like level, 5 and I was like, "Okay, what do I need for my hideout?" I'd write it down on the sticky note so that I could go find it in the raid, hopefully. And to be honest, like I was taking out my meds out of my container to put those items in there in case I
Yep.
died because I was like, I need the
Mhm.
hideout and I can buy more meds from therapists. So
Yep.
that's a good
At one
little thing to do.
at one point, this white I wipe I had toilet paper, toothpaste, and I don't know, like a CPU fan in my container.
Yes, I toothpaste went in mine too, and I was surprised by that.
Oh god. What has become of us? Uh,
Yeah.
I also want to ask you, you created a pretty useful tool, a med chart for people. I've seen you post that on social media on Discord.
Yes,
Um,
I did.
yeah. What made you come up with the idea to create that med chart? And yeah, how'd that come about?
Yeah, so my when I was first teaching somebody from absolute scratch, they haven't watched any videos, nothing. They bought the game, they knew me, and they're like, "Can you teach me?" And it was a great experience because I realized what it's like to come into Tarkov completely blind without any information, and it's very difficult.
Yep.
And they had the most trouble understanding the different meds and what they would do. And especially between what a heavy bleed was versus a light bleed.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And that kind of got me thinking, okay, well, is there a med chart? Let me look. Let me check the wiki, and there wasn't one up to date to where it had the different bleeds and everything. And a lot of the items, new items, had been added. There's a lot more health items now than in past patches. And so I was like, okay, this is definitely needed, and I think it's been really useful. And I've definitely given it to some of my Sherpalings recently, and they've really liked it.
Absolutely, I think it's a great resource. So thank you for creating it. I think new players are gonna find that very useful.
Yeah.
Um, the last thing we want to cover on customs is the extracts. When you are teaching player to finally, they've done all the things on customs, they're gonna successfully extract from a raid, maybe for the first time. What do you teach them about getting to these extracts successfully and getting out of the raid?
So I teach them to plan for extract. So to bring snacks usually, like a water and something to
Mhm.
eat, because the number one thing that they mess up is not thinking long term in the raid, because things take longer than expected sometimes. And so your energy and your hydration are huge to keep track of, because it can make a gunfight. It could be the end, You're
Yeah.
just over there in a standoff with some guy and your energy's 0, and now you're gonna die. It's kind of rough. So
Yep.
I asked them to plan for snacks, and then not to get overly excited, like, to still be cautious even though you can see extract from right there, to just make sure to clear those corners
Yep.
always, all the way to the end. Just just be careful. The same with, like, looting a dead body, you have to make sure there's nobody else around before, is the same with extract.
Very true. Very true. Now, Customs has a number of different extracts. I think it's probably one of the best maps from an extract standpoint because you have your static extracts like Crossroads,
Mhm,
Trailer Park,
mhm.
fact Zebby 11, and then you also have things like Smuggler's Boat, Old Gas
Yeah.
Station, ZB 13, which and ZB 12, which you can either turn on or sometimes they're up, sometimes they're not. Um, do you How do you teach new players to approach these specific extracts? Are they more part of like do you want them to get there specifically, or are you trying to get them to like the static ones first?
I try to teach the ones that maybe aren't always there as well,
Mhm.
because, again, sticky situations happen a lot in
Yep,
Tarkov, and those could save you. The same as, like, I always encourage them to put a little bit of cash on them for the car extract,
definitely.
and then to keep an eye out for that factory key when they're looting, and to secure that as quick as possible. And I show them the power button when I'm teaching them so that they can turn on ZB 13. And I show them a couple different jump overs that might be get them out of like sticky situations towards those extracts sooner. But I show them those, and um, it takes time, I think, is the biggest key there, is to for them to start thinking about those, to check those on their way. But no, definitely I encourage the use of all of the extracts, because it's really, really nice.
Definitely. And that car extract, now I hear you're getting a decent amount of scav karma too, so that's kind of cool. I haven't actually
Yes,
taken one this wipe yet, but I
I have been definitely taking all the car extracts. So I probably stole one from you.
Oh my goodness.
I love them.
That's great. All right, now we've covered most of customs. I do want to move
Yeah.
over to woods
Okay.
and sort of take the same approach we just did, where we start from spawn here. Now woods has got a rework last wipe and
Mhm.
is a huge map now, and according to you, best map in the game. Not according
Yeah.
to all Tarkov players, but
Definitely not, no, but I'll stand by
okay.
it.
Tell me about what you love about woods to start, and yeah, take me
It's
through a woods raid for you.
Woods is there's just something about Woods that I just love, and there's not a set choke point really right now
Mhm.
with how they've
Yep.
reworked it. It's a beautiful rework that they did. There's so much more loot on the map. The there's food everywhere. So if you need sugar, if you need anything, Woods is got your back. Maybe not a LEDX, um, but it's gonna have, especially early on, it's really nice for those early quests because there's those spawns in the village, which is a part of the new area,
Mhm.
that have 3M armor that spawn in the house,
Yep.
as well as scavs there, because you're gonna need scav kills, you're gonna need that 3M armor, and you're also gonna need food items. Jaeger wants a bunch of food from you, and so it's a great area to go to loot that. It can be tricky though, because a lot of people do say Woods is that map that you just get sniped out of nowhere,
Yep.
and I think that's why I love it, because can I spot him before he spots me? That is so fun, and the boss, Shturman, is a blast to fight, and he's got that red rebel, which is awesome.
Beautiful. Loved it. Although it's not as useful as it once was, sadly.
That is true, they
Yeah.
took out the red rebel extract on Woods.
Mhm. Yeah, I was kinda sad about that.
I was also sad.
I have seen a renewed call for a Red Rebel extract on Shoreline, and I'm here for it. I want it.
Oh, that would be great. I
Yeah,
think Shoreline could definitely use another.
definitely, definitely. So let's start with some of the spawn points here. Now, it used to be when this was a smaller map that you could spawn right next to another large group,
Yeah.
uh, and you were even in shooting range with them to spawn.
Mhm.
But now, with how big the map is, I think they might even need to add more PMC spawns to this, or not more spawns, but more PMCs to the map. But
Correct.
it's pretty spread out to start. How do you, what kind of a path do you take? As you mentioned, there's no choke points really at this point in time.
Yeah.
Um,
So pathing on Woods, I am thinking about the other spawns,
mhm,
simply because people like to move to Sawmill pretty quickly. They're going either for Shturman or their quest items there, but a lot of like the woods mains or people comfortable on it like to head to Sawmill, and so that pushes them out of their spawns and sometimes into your line of pathing. And
okay.
so I do think about that a little bit. Um, but when I push out of my spawn, it's the same as customs. Like it's whatever I came in with the plan to do. But I think taking an approach, kind of a slower approach at times, is good. And to be careful of when you are fighting scavs, because other people are going to hear you if you're not suppressed, and they can sneak up on you pretty easy in woods. So being careful of taking those fights with the scavs until you kind of give the area a look around is really important, because woods is all about sound to
Mhm,
me as well, because your sniper is just waiting to hear those shots to pinpoint where's that coming from, where do I need to look.
totally. Do you have a favorite sniper spot to go to? I know there's just tons, but uh,
There's multiple. I have spots for even countering those spots.
nice.
Yeah, so there's a lot. The if you're trying to hunt Sturman, there's two. There's a big rock. There's attachment shed, which is by the water.
Yep.
It's water sign,
Mhm.
and so if you go past that, there's a huge rock, towards, it's by the beach still, but right before Sawmill. You can get up on that rock, and you can get a pretty good line of sight in there, and Sturman's moving around more often right now, and so sometimes you can snipe him, which is really nice, or look across the beach, and you can typically see PMCs in that wooded area across.
Nice. What's your favorite sniper? What's your sniper rifle of choice?
Uh, I used to say the suppressed Mosin, but I've switched to the suppressed SV-98 now.
Oh, I like that one.
Yes.
That's got a nice MOA on it.
Mhm.
What I know there's a lot of differences in the community on what scope you like to run. I'd love to ask you, are you a Voodoo, a Valde, or is there another scope that has your attention?
I love them all, actually.
Okay.
I find a use for each one except the March scope. That's the only one I
Much
can't.
tactical can burn in hell.
Yes. That one is a pain, but all the others I do find a use for.
Totally. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit more about the fighting Shturman and the guards. Now you
Yeah,
mentioned maybe sniping him. He will one tap you though. He is not an easy guy to fight
he's not.
if he sees you first.
Correct. If
Yeah.
he sees you first, you better hope he didn't shoot, and you could take cover. And that's immediately what I tell people to do is take cover. The same with Reshala's guards, pretty much, is reposition to get an line of sight on him. But a lot of people think that you need to snipe Sherman, and there are ways for those that prefer close quarter combat
Mhm.
to get him. Like you can run in there with a SMG or something like this if that's more your style. It's just using the cover within Sawmill as best you can that you have to get down. And it's a bit tricky, but it
Yep.
is doable because I've had a lot of people come to me and ask me, like, I can't snipe. I don't like sniping. What do I do? And I've killed him many times with just a Keter, and it's doable. You just have to get the cover down and the timing down.
Now, one thing that I find I use on woods that I don't use anywhere else is the compass. Are
Yes.
you the same for that as well? Because I find I
Mhm.
never use it anywhere else.
Yeah. I definitely I sometimes have used it on other maps now. It just depends on the squad I'm running with, but yeah, Woods isn't definitely using the compass a lot because otherwise your comms are he's by that tree or that rock. He's over yonder by the beach. It's tough. And so definitely the compass is super useful and I think it will clear up a lot of comms, especially if you're playing in a group of newer players
Mm,
and it'll help a lot.
totally. And I think to get that, you have to complete the convoy quest on woods. I'm pretty
You
sure that's the
you
case.
you do you can buy it, but it's very
I think
expensive.
200K or something
Um
like that.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can also find it in Sawmill in the gray building. It spawns on the shelves.
Right.
So you can find it there, but the that task is a bit tricky because if you die, it resets to where you have to go visit both again until you survive. So a lot of new players struggle with it, but I encourage them to either practice offline or just keep going because it's so helpful to have that.
Totally. Offline mode's a great tool when you're learning the game. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, because that's my number one when they say I can't find Jaeger's camp, I say, "You've gotta go offline for
Yeah.
woods because the map is just huge."
Oh, it's massive. I do love the rework. I just wish there were a few more PMCs on it now.
Yes, I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
The spawns are really good, but the PMC count is a little low
Mhm.
because the fights that I loved back when there was a chokehold behind Sawmill in the woods by Mark Circle, I'm not running into those as often.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's too bad, especially when it concerns Tarkov Shooter Part 8, a quest where you have
Yes,
to kill 3
exactly.
PMCs in the same raid with a bolt.
Yes.
Oh god. I'm not looking
Yeah.
forward to that one this way.
Took me a couple days.
A couple days is probably, not bad for some people. They're probably saying, like, sitting at home like, "Oh my god, I wish it took me 2 days."
Yeah, I know many that it took forever, and it just literally they'd be like, "I can't find anybody," and it's tough. The map's big.
I have some friends who will bring an SVD on their an SVD on their back, and when they get to Sawmill, sort of pop off in the same rhythm that Sherman would
Mhm.
to bring all
Yep.
the boys to the yard and see if see if we
Yep.
can snipe them.
Yep.
It's
I
pretty
look
amazing.
for those people, yes. I hunt them down.
Okay, I'll remind my friends.
Yeah, scare them for
Yeah.
me.
Okay. Now, extracting from this map is
Yeah.
there's a few more extracts now thanks to the rework. There's car
Yeah.
extract, which I'm sure you've used a couple times now.
Mhm. It's good.
Uh, the Northern UN roadblock, which I really like, in addition to UN roadblock, RUAF, which is not a static not a static one. ZB14, which you need a key for. Outskirts, which is static. And Factory Gate, which is a friendly scav extract. Um,
Yep.
now, let's get into the friendly scav extract because there's not one on customs. We haven't had a chance to talk about that yet. How do you describe these to new players? And I mean, have you have you ever had the opportunity to use this aside from the event that occurred last at the end of last wipe?
I hadn't had the opportunity before, and I think part of that is because we didn't have the scav karma.
Hmm.
I know people that have now successfully done it, and before it was a bit more rare, I think, and I'm excited to see this wipe if I can accomplish that more often, either as a scav or a PMC. But as for teaching Sherpalings that extract, I hadn't really before. I kind of
Yeah.
told them what it was, but it was such a far-fetched idea, I guess, at the
Yeah.
time because of the culture of Tarkov
Yeah.
with the scavs.
Yeah.
But now, I'm interested to see how it goes because you also get increased karma for killing PMCs. So I
True.
don't know if scavs are gonna want the karma or they're gonna be like, can what kind of reward am I gonna get from
Yeah.
extracting here?
Never
Because
know.
if they extract together there, they both get something sent in the mail to them by fence.
I like getting things from Fence, especially
I
when it's
do too.
100,000 US dollars.
That's true, and I know a friend that got a LEDX for doing it,
Ooh,
so, I mean, there are pros.
I'll take a Linux. Yeah, please. All right. Now, when you're planning to help people extract from this map, it's a huge map, as we mentioned, and you're gonna need to take some time. So probably bring snacks. Uh,
Yes.
but how else are you helping people get out of this
Um,
map?
so on this map, especially if they don't know the map, um, it can be a little bit difficult, but I always encourage bringing money for the car too, and I tell them right away you need to figure out on the map where you are by if you don't know the map very well, figure out where you are and try to see where your extract is and start generally getting your pathing going towards that. On woods, I don't encourage pathing away from that too much until they know the map better.
Okay.
Or if they're going for a quest item, go in, get your quest item, and then head straight to extract because it even bringing snacks sometimes they can loot in there, but they tend to get lost. And so it takes really, really long for
Yep.
them to get it down. And so I always encourage them to be thinking about extract early.
Very true. Good point. Good point. All right. Now we've covered customs. We've covered woods. I want to get into some money runs before we close out here. What are some of your favorite money runs to help people make some money? Because it's a lot harder right now.
Yeah.
Before you hit the flea, what? How are people making these money? How are the people making money right now?
So money, I think it is tough. It is very tough right now. I'd say money runs for if you're just vendoring. I'm going woods or interchange.
Hmm.
Because it's really nice because on interchange you get a lot of the things that you need for barters. So maybe you're not going to make money, but you're also not going to spend it as much maybe because you'll be able to barter for like a CMS by
True.
getting those three nippers that are laying around and trading for it. Um so it, it's also about questing, I think, and hitting jackets as much as possible for keys so you can continue to progress quest wise because those also give you money and they're going to help you in the long run get to that flea market. So those awesome corrugated hoses you've been hoarding, you can sell finally. But keys are a big thing too because if you start getting duplicate dorm keys, those go straight to therapist or diaries or see well I'm trying to think flash drives if you have all of
Yep.
them that you need for your task then you can start turning those in to peacekeeper for dollars which is nice which gives you more options. But I think just generally, I this wipe, I was just looting as much as possible of everything and trying to figure out, okay, what is going to sell best to the vendor. And one of the things was literally condensed milk for me.
Yep.
That was huge. Running woods, they're everywhere, and so selling that to therapists because nobody wants to drink condensed milk unless you're trying to dehydrate.
I just did
So
that
that's
last
a
night.
big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there it's kind of tough because you need to hoard everything in the very beginning. So money is stressful, it's hard, but the other thing is not to just run your PMC. really scav run as much as
Right.
you can is my number one tip for making money because it's great. That's just extra loot for free. You didn't have to bring in a kit.
Totally. Totally. All right. Well, Dunk, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And thank you for helping all the Sherplings out.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
I had fun too. Dunk, everybody go follow Dunk if you can. I'll put the link in the description below. We'll see you next time. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Dunk to Cat, for being our Sherpa today. Go give her a follow. Her links are in the description below. And if you're looking for a Tarkov Sherpa, you can find all that information on how to do just that below as well. We're going to make a series of podcasts with a number of different Sherpas, so if there's a specific topic that you want to see covered with a Sherpa, please let me know. And just thanks to all you for hanging out in the podcast today. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know in the comments what maps you're running the most. And if you're a beginner, what maps do you have the hardest time with? If you're listening on Spotify, you can do that on Twitter at Tarkov Reporter. Of course, you can find me on Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, pretty much wherever you can find Tarkov content. Love to see you join the Discord as well. All those links are below, and we have a brand new website, tarkovnews.com. Go bookmark that. That's going to do it for this edition of Live from Tarkov. Go divide them cheeks. We'll see y'all next time.